The first thing I noticed wasn't the welcome home sign, because there wasn't one. The first thing I noticed was the smell of hickory smoke and expensive steak grilling on a barbecue that I had paid for, in a yard I had mowed for 5 years, in front of a house that was supposed to be my sanctuary. I gripped the steering wheel of my rental car until my knuckles turned white. 2 years. I had been deployed in Okinawa for 2 long, grueling years, handling logistics for the Marine Corps. I had missed birthdays, Christmases, and the funeral of my favorite aunt. I had lived in barracks that smelled of mold and industrial cleaner, dreaming of this exact moment, pulling into my own driveway, unlocking my front door, and sleeping in a bed that didn't feel like a slab of concrete. But I couldn't pull into my driveway, because parked right there, blocking the path to my garage, was a car that had no business being in a middle-class suburb in Ohio. It was a Lamborghini Hurricane, bright, screaming, obnoxious yellow. It sat there like a gemstone dropped in a mud puddle, gleaming under the afternoon sun. I checked the GPS on my phone. No mistake, this was my address. 412 Oakwood Lane. My heart started to hammer a strange rhythm against my ribs. Not fear, but a cold, creeping dread. I put the rental in park on the street and stepped out. The air was crisp, typical for late autumn, but I felt sweat prickling the back of my neck. I was wearing my civilian clothes, jeans and a light jacket, but I suddenly wished I was in uniform. It was armor. Right now, I felt exposed. I walked up the path. Laughter erupted from the backyard. Loud, raucous laughter. I knew that voice. It was Kevin, my older brother, the 40-year-old boy wonder who had never held a job for longer than 6 months and who still thought buying lottery tickets was a viable retirement strategy. I rounded the corner of the house and froze. They were all there on the patio. My father, Robert, was flipping steaks on the grill, a beer in one hand. My mother, Martha, was pouring wine into crystal glasses, my crystal glasses. And Kevin was sitting in my favorite Adirondack chair, wearing sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly base pay, gesturing wildly with a cigar. Juliana! My mother saw me first. She didn't run to hug me. She didn't drop the wine bottle in shock. She just froze, her smile faltering for a split second before she plastered on a new one. Stiff, practiced, and entirely fake. "You're early," she said. 2 days early, I said, my voice sounding raspy. I caught a transport flight out of Cadena. Surprise! The silence that followed was heavy, thick enough to choke on. My father turned slowly from the grill. He didn't look happy. He looked annoyed, like I was a door-to-door salesman interrupting his dinner. "Well," Dad grunted, wiping his hands on his apron, "you could have called. We have guests coming." "Guests?" I looked around. "I'm not a guest, Dad. I live here. This is my house." Kevin let out a sharp, barking laugh. He took a drag of his cigar and blew the smoke in my direction. "Correction, little sister, was your house." I looked at him, then at my parents. What is he talking about? Dad took a step forward, puffing out his chest. He had always been a big man, used to using his physical presence to intimidate us when we were kids. It didn't work on me anymore. I'd faced down worse things than a grumpy retiree, but old habits die hard. "Kevin's right," Dad said, his voice devoid of any warmth. "We sold it, Juliana. Closed the deal 2 weeks ago. You don't live here anymore." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I blinked, trying to process the words. You sold my house? How? Why?" "Power of attorney," Kevin chimed in, grinning like a shark. "You signed it over to Dad before you deployed, remember? In case of emergencies." Emergency? I felt my hands ball into fists at my sides. What emergency? Is someone sick? Is someone dying? Financial emergency, Dad said, crossing his arms. Kevin needed help. He was in a bind, a bad one. He needed a fresh start. And you, well, you were over there in Japan living on the government's dime, stacking up that combat pay. You didn't need this place. It was just sitting here, gathering dust, a wasted asset. I looked at the yellow Lamborghini in the driveway, then back at Kevin, who was swirling his wine. A bind? I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You sold my home to get Kevin out of a bind, and he bought a Lamborghini? It's an investment, Jules, Kevin said, waving his hand dismissively. You wouldn't understand high-level finance. Image is everything. I'm building a brand. You're homeless now, Dad said, and there was a cruel finality in his tone. The new owners take possession in 3 days. We're just clearing out the last of the junk. You can take whatever fits in your rental car, but the rest goes to the dump. Junk? I repeated. My life is in this house. My furniture, my books, the flag from Grandpa's funeral. Stuff, Mom interjected softly, finally speaking up. It's just stuff, honey. Family is what matters. Sacrifice is what family does. We did what we had to do to save your brother. Save him? I pointed at the car. You bought him a toy? You liquidated my life to buy a middle-aged man a toy? Watch your tone, Dad snapped, his face turning red. I am your father. I had the legal right. That power of attorney gave me full discretion. I made an executive decision. You're single, you have a career, you can buy another house. Kevin needed this now. I looked at them, really looked at them. I saw the entitlement etched into my brother's smirk. I saw the self-righteous arrogance in my father's stance. I saw the weak, enabling cowardice in my mother's eyes. For years, I had been the provider. I sent checks home. I paid for the new roof on their house. I paid for Kevin's bail the last 2 times he got in trouble. I thought I was buying their love, or at least their respect. I was wrong. I was just an ATM with a pulse. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap. It was quiet. It was the sound of a heavy steel door slamming shut and locking tight. The tears that had been threatening to spill suddenly evaporated. My spine straightened. The fatigue from the flight vanished, replaced by a cold, crystalline clarity. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I looked at the Lamborghini one last time. Then I looked at my father. Okay, I said. Dad blinked, surprised by my sudden calm. Okay? Okay, I repeated. You sold the house. You have the money. Kevin has the car. I understand completely. Good, Dad huffed, relaxing slightly. Glad you're being reasonable for once. Grab your bag and go find a hotel. We'll celebrate properly later. What's so funny? Kevin asked, noticing the slight curl of my lip. I hadn't realized I was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile a predator gives before it strikes. Nothing, Kevin, I said softly. Enjoy the steak. I hope it's worth it. I turned around and walked back to my rental car. I didn't look back. I drove 3 blocks before I had to pull over. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't grip the wheel. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, turned off the engine, and just breathed. In, out, in, out. The tactical breathing exercises they taught us in basic training kicked in. Panic is the enemy. Emotion is a liability. Focus on the objective. But what was the objective? I was 34 years old. I was a staff sergeant. I had managed logistics for battalion-sized movements. And now I was effectively homeless in my own hometown, betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect me. I checked my phone. I had missed calls from friends I hadn't seen in 2 years, excited to welcome me back. I couldn't face them. Not yet. The shame was too hot, too raw. It wasn't just the loss of the house, it was the humiliation, the realization that my family viewed me as nothing more than a resource to be harvested. I needed a base of operations. I needed intel. I started the car and drove to the one place I knew would be safe. Not a hotel, but a small, tidy brick house just 2 streets over from my old place. Mr. Marcus opened the door before I even knocked. He was 72, a Vietnam veteran who walked with a cane but still had the sharpest eyes in the neighborhood. He had been my neighbor for 5 years, watching over my place when I was deployed, collecting my mail until Dad took over that duty. Juliana? His eyes widened. I saw the rental pull up. I thought, my God, girl, come in. He ushered me into his living room, which smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco. It was comforting in a way my own home hadn't been for a long time. He sat me down and poured me a glass of iced tea without asking. I saw you go over there, Mr. Marcus said, his voice low and grave. I saw you leave 5 minutes later. I take it they told you? They told me, I said, staring at the condensation on the glass. They sold it, Marcus. They sold my house. Marcus sighed, a heavy, rattling sound in his chest. I tried to stop them, Jules. I went over there when the for sale sign went up 2 weeks ago. Your daddy, he threatened to call the cops on me, said it was family business and I was trespassing. 2 weeks? I looked up. They sold a house in 2 weeks? Cash buyer, Marcus said. Some investment firm. They've been buying up properties all over the district. Aggressive folks. Shark Ventures or something like that. He stood up and limped over to his computer desk. But that's not the worst of it. Come here. You need to see this. Mr. Marcus was a bit of a paranoid survivalist, which meant he had high-definition security cameras pointing in every direction, covering not just his property, but a good chunk of the street, including a clear view of my front yard. He clicked a file dated 10 days ago. On the screen, I saw my parents' truck backed up to my front door, and I saw them. I watched, numbly, as my father and Kevin carried my furniture out, not to a moving truck, but to a rented dumpster parked on the curb. There went my beige sofa, the one I saved up for 6 months to buy, toss. There went my bookshelves, smash. There went the boxes labeled personal mementos that I had carefully packed before deploying. I watched Kevin laugh as he threw a box into the dumpster. It burst open. I saw a flash of gold and blue, my high school track trophies, my commendation medals from my first tour. They didn't even try to sell it, Marcus whispered, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. They just trashed it, like it was garbage. It was faster, I said, my voice dead. Selling it takes time. Inventorying it takes effort. Trashing it, that's quick. They needed the house empty for the buyer. I watched the video for another minute. I saw my mother standing by the door, holding a clipboard, directing them. She wasn't crying then. She looked efficient, ruthless. Can I have a copy of this? I asked. I already put it on a thumb drive for you, Marcus said, handing me a small silver drive, along with the audio. Audio? My new cameras pick up sound, he said with a grim smile. You might want to listen to the file labeled Wednesday Might. I plugged the drive into his computer and clicked the file. It was night in the video. Kevin and Dad were standing by the newly purchased Lamborghini, which they must have bought before the house sale even closed, using credit against the pending sale. Kevin's voice, Man, this thing is sweet. Jules is gonna flip when she finds out. Dad's voice, Let her flip. What's she gonna do? Sue her own father? She's too soft. She's always desperate for us to like her. She'll cry for a week, then she'll get over it. She's got that military paycheck. She can afford to start over. You sure the POA covers everything? Ironclad. I checked. I can sell the dirt out from under her and she can't say a word. It's the perfect crime, son. Except it ain't a crime. It's asset management. They left, clinking beer bottles. I sat back in the chair. The pain in my chest was gone. It had been cauterized by a rage so pure, so white-hot, it felt like fuel. Soft, I repeated to myself, desperate for them to like me. Mr. Marcus looked at me. What are you going to do, Juliana? You need a lawyer. I have a lawyer, I said, standing up, but first I need a hotel room, and a printer, and a very strong cup of coffee. You have a plan, Marcus stated. It wasn't a question. They think I'm the same girl who left 2 years ago, I said, clutching the thumb drive in my hand. The girl who just wanted Daddy to be proud of her. They forgot who I became over there. I'm a logistics specialist, Marcus. I don't operate on feelings. I operate on receipts, and I'm going to bury them in paper. I walked to the door. Thank you, Marcus. Don't tell them you saw me. I haven't seen a soul, he winked. I stepped out into the night. The air was cold, but I didn't feel it. I had work to do. The next morning, I didn't go to the house. I went to the bank. I sat in the glass-walled office of Sarah, the branch manager. Sarah and I had gone to high school together. She was one of the few people I trusted implicitly. When I deployed, I had added her name to my in-case-of-emergency contact list at the bank, but I had made the fatal mistake of giving my father access to my primary checking account to handle bill payments. Sarah looked pale as she turned her monitor toward me. Juliana, I tried to flag it, she stammered, but his name was on the account. He had the authorization. Just show me, Sarah, I said, my voice steady. I need the trail. We looked at the screen, the financial autopsy of my betrayal. The sale of the house hadn't technically closed yet. The final funds from the buyer were in escrow, but a massive earnest money deposit of $50,000 had hit my account 3 weeks ago. And then the withdrawals began. Here, Sarah pointed with a trembling finger. $25,000 wire transfer to Prestige Exotics of Ohio. That's the down payment on the Lamborghini. Keep going, I said. $10,000 to Paradise Island Resorts. Looks like an all-inclusive package for 3 to the Maldives, booked for next month. $5,000 cash withdrawal. Another $5,000 cash withdrawal. And here, Sarah clicked on a scanned check image. This one is interesting. A check for $15,000 written to Golden Leaf Casino. That's to cover a debt. I stared at the numbers. It wasn't just greed. It was gluttony. They were feasting on my carcass before I was even dead. The medical emergency, I muttered. There never was one. What? Sarah asked. Dad told me they sold the house because of a financial emergency, I explained. He implied it was health-related or critical. But this, I tapped the screen, this is a car, a vacation, and gambling debts. They didn't sell my house to survive. They sold it to party. Juliana, looking at this, Sarah lowered her voice. The account balance is almost zero. They drained the $50,000 deposit. If the sale falls through for any reason, you, or rather the account holder, would be liable to pay that back. I know, I said. Print it all. Certified copies, every single transaction. What are you going to do? Sarah asked as the printer whirred to life. I'm going to visit the buyer, I said, and then I'm going to see a shark about a house. I took the stack of papers, my first batch of receipts, and walked out. The sun was shining, but everything looked gray. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Kevin. Picture attachment. Him posing next to the Lamborghini, giving a thumbs up. Text. Don't be mad, sis. Life is for living. We'll let you drive it once. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it and saved it to a folder named Evidence. I drove to the address listed on the real estate contract Sarah had found for me. It wasn't a residential address. It was a sleek glass office building downtown. Shark Ventures Realty, we eat the competition. The irony wasn't lost on me. I walked up to the reception desk. I'm here to see Evelyn Thorne. I believe she's the one purchasing 412 Oakwood Lane. The receptionist looked me up and down. My jeans and denim jacket didn't scream important client. Miss Thorne is in a meeting. Do you have an appointment? Tell her the owner of the property she's trying to steal is here, I said loud enough for the people in the waiting area to hear. And tell her I know about the accelerated closing date. 5 minutes later, I was ushered into a corner office. Evelyn Thorne was a woman who looked like she was carved out of marble and dressed in pure silk. She was in her late 50s, with hair sprayed into an immovable helmet of blonde perfection. She didn't offer me a seat. Miss Lawson, she said, looking at a file on her desk, your father said you were difficult. I didn't realize you were back in the country. I'm back, I said, remaining standing, and I'm seeing some irregularities with the sale. There are no irregularities, Evelyn snapped. I have a valid purchase agreement signed by Robert Lawson, acting as power of attorney. The title search is clear. We close in 3 days. The wire transfer for the remaining $350,000 is scheduled. You got a bargain, I said flatly. That house is worth $450,000. You got it for $400,000. Evelyn smiled, a predator's grin. Distressed sellers are my specialty. Your father seemed eager, desperate actually. He agreed to a fast close penalty clause. If the house isn't empty and keys handed over by Friday at 5 p.m., he owes me $50,000 in damages, plus legal fees. My stomach tightened. Dad had signed a penalty clause? He was so arrogant, so sure he could bully me into submission that he bet another $50,000 of money he didn't have. And if the sale is found to be fraudulent? I asked. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? If it turns out the seller didn't have the legal right to sell, what then? Then, Evelyn leaned forward, her voice dropping to a growl. I would sue everyone involved for fraud, breach of contract, and damages. I would strip them of every asset they own. I would put liens on their future wages. I would make sure they never borrowed a dime from a bank again. I don't lose, Miss Lawson. Ever. Good, I said, placing a business card on her desk. Not my card, my lawyer's card. I just wanted to make sure you were as ruthless as I hoped, because you're going to need that energy. What are you playing at? Evelyn stood up. I'm not playing, I said. I'm just giving you a heads up. Don't send that wire transfer yet. You might want to double-check who actually owns the land. I turned and walked out, leaving her confused and angry. I had planted the seed of doubt. Now I needed to water it with the truth. But first, I had to deal with the woman who birthed me. My phone rang. Mom flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment. Part of me, the little girl who used to scrape her knees and run to mommy for a bandage, wanted to answer and hear an apology, wanted to hear her say, "We made a mistake, come home." But the soldier in me knew better. This was a tactical maneuver. I answered, "Hello, Martha." There was a pause. Calling her by her first name was a slap in the face, and she felt it. Juliana, honey, please, don't be like this. We need to talk. Meet me at Daisy's Cafe. Just us girls, please. Just us girls, I repeated. Sure, 2 p.m. I arrived 10 minutes early. I chose a booth in the corner, away from the noise. I ordered a black coffee. Then I took my phone out, set it to airplane mode so no calls would interrupt, and opened the voice memo app. I hit record and placed the phone face down on the table, hidden under a napkin. Mom walked in right at 2 p.m. She looked frail, smaller than I remembered. She was wearing a cardigan I had bought her for Christmas 3 years ago. She had clearly been crying. Her eyes were red and puffy. It was a performance. I knew it was harsh to think that, but I had watched the video of her directing the destruction of my property. That woman hadn't been frail. That woman had been a general. She sat down and reached for my hand. I pulled it away. "Jules," she sniffled, "your father, he's just stressed. He loves you. We all love you." "He told me I was homeless, Mom. He laughed about it." "He didn't mean it like that," she pleaded. "He's just protecting Kevin." "You know how sensitive your brother is." "Sensitive?" I raised an eyebrow. "He's 40, Mom. He drives a Lamborghini bought with my money. That's not sensitive. That's sociopathic." "Don't use that word." Her voice sharpened, then softened instantly. "Kevin has been having a hard time. He was depressed. Dark thoughts, Juliana. We were scared. He said he felt like a failure. He needed a win. He needed to feel like a big shot to get his confidence back." "So you sacrificed me to make him feel like a big shot?" "You're strong," she insisted, tears spilling over. "You've always been the strong one. You can handle hardship. You're a survivor. Kevin would break. We had to choose, honey. And we knew you could survive losing a house. Kevin couldn't survive losing his." "His dignity?" "Dignity?" I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat. "Buying a supercar with stolen money is dignity?" "It's not stolen. We're a family. What's yours is ours." She was getting hysterical now, drawing looks from other tables. "Why are you being so selfish? You have that big military pension waiting for you. You have health care. Kevin has nothing." "He has nothing because he does nothing," I said coldly. "Juliana, please." She lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Just sign the closing papers on Friday, validating the sale. If you fight this, if you try to stop it, Evelyn Thorne will sue us. Your father could go to jail. Do you want to send your father to jail?" Here it was, the guilt trip, the ultimate weapon. "Did you know?" "Did you know he was going to sell it before I came home?" She hesitated. "I told him to wait. But Kevin found the car, and he looked so happy, Jules. I haven't seen him smile like that in years. I just wanted my baby to be happy." "I'm your baby too," I whispered. "You don't need me like he does," she said. And that was the truth, the brutal, naked truth. She loved him more because he was broken. My competence was my punishment. "One more question," I said, leaning in. "The addendum. The real estate agent mentioned a document signed last week modifying the terms. Dad was out of town at the casino. Who signed it?" Mom went pale. Her eyes darted to the side. I don't know what you're talking about." "You forged my signature, didn't you, Mom?" "It was just a formality," she hissed. "The agent needed it faxed right then or the deal would collapse. I practiced your signature a few times. It looks exactly like yours. Nobody will know. Unless you tell them." "You committed a felony," I said. "Forgery is a felony." "I did it for the family." She slammed her hand on the table. "Stop acting like a lawyer and start acting like a daughter." I reached under the napkin and picked up my phone. I stopped the recording. "I am acting like a daughter," I said, standing up. "I'm acting like the daughter you raised, the one you taught to take responsibility for her actions. It's time Kevin and Dad learned the same lesson." "Where are you going?" she cried as I walked away. "To see a man about a signature," I said. I left her sitting there, weeping into her hands. I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. The umbilical cord hadn't just been cut, it had been burned. I drove straight to the office of Jeffrey Vance, Esquire. Mr. Vance had been my grandfather's lawyer. He was an old-school attorney. Mahogany desk, leather-bound books, and a mind like a steel trap. He was the one man my father feared because Vance knew where all the bodies were buried. I had called him from Okinawa 3 years ago, right before I deployed. "Juliana," Vance greeted me, standing up with a warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He looked worried. "I got your message, and I saw the recording you sent over from the cloud. Your mother, that's difficult evidence to hear." "Did you pull the records from the county clerk?" I asked, sitting down. "I did." He slid a file across the desk. I opened it. There it was, the Addendum to Purchase Agreement, dated 5 days ago. It was a document agreeing to include all fixtures, appliances, and personal property remaining on premises in the sale. Basically, it gave the buyer the right to keep or trash my stuff legally. And at the bottom was my signature, Juliana Lawson. It looked good, really good. The loops on the J, the sharp slant of the L. If I didn't know I was 7,000 miles away when it was signed, I might have believed it was mine. "That's Martha's handwriting," Vance said quietly. "I've seen her sign checks for 30 years. She has a distinctive tremor at the end of her N. It's there." "So it's forgery," I said. "It's worse than forgery," Vance corrected, cleaning his glasses, "because this document was notarized." "How? I wasn't there." "They likely found a crooked notary, or your father bullied someone, or," Vance hesitated, "or your mother impersonated you. She looks young for her age, with a hat and sunglasses? Maybe." "This makes the contract voidable, right?" I asked. "It makes it void ab initio, from the beginning. It's a fraudulent instrument," Vance said. "But Juliana, if we use this, if we go down this road, we are talking about criminal charges, not just civil lawsuits. We are talking about fraud, forgery, and uttering a false instrument. Your parents could face prison time, your mother included." I thought about Mom in the cafe. I just wanted my baby to be happy. She was willing to commit a crime to help Kevin, but she wouldn't even save my high school trophies from a dumpster. "They made their choice," I said. "What about the twist we discussed? The nuclear option?" Vance smiled then. It was a terrifying smile. "Oh, that? That is the beauty of this whole mess. They are fighting over who has the right to sell the house. Your father thinks his power of attorney is the ultimate trump card. He thinks that because he can sign for you, he can sell your assets." "He forgot one thing," I said, feeling a grim satisfaction. "He forgot that you don't own the house," Vance finished. He opened a second file, a thicker one, the JL Asset Protection Trust. 3 years ago," Vance recited, "upon my advice, before you entered a combat zone, you transferred the deed of 412 Oakwood Lane into this trust. You are the beneficiary, yes, but the trust owns the property. And who is the trustee?" "You are," I said. "Exactly," Vance tapped the desk. "The power of attorney your father has allows him to act for Juliana Lawson, the individual. It gives him zero authority over the JL Trust. He has been selling a house he doesn't own, using a signature he doesn't have the right to use, to a buyer who didn't do her due diligence." "Why didn't the title company catch it?" I asked. "Because the deed transfer hasn't been digitized in the county system yet, backlog from the budget cuts," Vance explained. "If they had done a physical pull of the file, they would have seen it. But they rushed it. They relied on the electronic index, which still lists you as owner. Greed makes people sloppy." "So on Friday, Vance leaned back, "we let them walk into the trap. We let them think they've won. We let Evelyn Thorne hand over the rest of the money. And then we drop the hammer," I said. "We drop the whole toolbox," Vance agreed. I stood up. I felt powerful. For the first time since I landed, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a sniper waiting for the perfect shot. One more thing, Vance said. Keep your distance from Kevin. He's volatile. If he knows you're fighting back, he might do something stupid. He already did something stupid, I said. He bought a yellow Lamborghini. I couldn't stay away completely. I needed to see it. I needed to see the extent of the damage. That evening, I parked my rental car down the street from my house. My house, I reminded myself, the trust's house. The lights were on, music was thumping. It sounded like a party. I walked closer, staying in the shadows of the oak trees. The yellow Lamborghini was there, shining under the streetlights. But now there were other cars, a beat-up Mustang, a couple of trucks, Kevin's friends. I watched from the sidewalk. They were drinking beer on the porch, my porch. Kevin was holding court, telling some exaggerated story, gesturing with a beer bottle. He was wearing one of my dad's old leather jackets. Suddenly, a girl came out of the house. She was young, maybe 22, too young for Kevin. She was holding a red vase. My breath hitched. That was my grandmother's vase, hand-blown glass. It was the only thing she left me when she died. "Kevin," the girl squealed, "look at this ugly thing. Can we smash it?" "Do it," Kevin yelled. "Christen the driveway." "No," I whispered. I stepped out of the shadows. "Don't." The girl froze. Kevin turned around. He squinted into the darkness. "Well, well," Kevin slurred. "Look who crawled back. The homeless vet." The music stopped. His friends turned to look. "Put the vase down," I said, walking up the driveway. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the urge to do violence. "This old trash?" Kevin grabbed the vase from the girl. He held it dangling by one finger. "You want it, Jules? Come get it." "Kevin, stop. That was Grandma's." "Grandma didn't leave me anything," Kevin spat. "She said I was irresponsible, said I was a leech. Well, look at me now, Grandma. I got a Lambo." He laughed a manic, wet sound. "Give it to me." I held out my hand. "You want it?" Kevin grinned. "Fetch." He threw the vase. Not at me, but high into the air, over the concrete driveway. I lunged for it. It was pure reflex. I dove, my knees hitting the hard pavement, my hands stretching out. I missed. Crash. The sound was sickening. 1,000 shards of red glass exploded across the driveway. Silence fell over the group. Even Kevin's drunk friends looked uncomfortable. I stayed on the ground for a second, staring at the shattered remains of my heritage, the last piece of unconditional love I had known. Slowly, I stood up. My jeans were torn at the knee. My palms were scraped and bleeding. "Oops," Kevin shrugged. "Butterfingers." I looked at him. I didn't see my brother anymore. I didn't see a human being. I saw a cancer, a malignant tumor that had attached itself to my family and rotted it from the inside out. "You really enjoy this, don't you?" I asked softly. "I enjoy winning." Kevin stepped closer, getting in my face. He smelled of cheap beer and expensive cologne. "Mom and Dad chose me, Jules. Get that through your thick skull. They chose me. You're just the bank account. And now that the account is closed, you're nothing." "Is that what they told you?" I asked. "That I'm closed?" "I saw the balance," Kevin sneered. "We drained you dry. And on Friday, we get the rest of the cash from the house. And I'm moving to Vegas. Gonna live like a king." "Friday," I nodded. "Right, Friday." "Get off my property," Kevin growled, "or I'll call the cops. Dad says I can. Trespassing." "It's not your property yet, Kevin." "Close enough." He shoved me. It wasn't a hard shove, but it was enough to make me stumble back. I regained my balance. I looked at the security camera on Mr. Marcus's house across the street. I saw the tiny red light blinking. "Okay," I said, dusting off my hands. "I'm leaving." "Run away, little soldier," Kevin yelled after me. "Go cry to your commander." I walked back to my car. My knees were bleeding, soaking the denim. My hands were stinging, but my mind was clear. He had assaulted me. It was minor, but it was physical contact, and he had destroyed property. I pulled out my phone and dialed Lawyer Vance. "Change of plans," I said. "We don't just wait for the sale. We add a civil suit for battery and destruction of personal property. I want everything. I want the shirt off his back." "Did he hurt you?" Vance asked, alarmed. "He broke Grandma's vase," I said, my voice cracking for the first time. "He broke it on purpose." Vance was silent for a moment. "Then we will break him, Juliana. I promise you." The next morning, Thursday, one day before the closing, I was at the motel, organizing my paperwork. There was a knock on the door, violent pounding. I looked through the peephole. It was Kevin. How did he find me? Then I remembered. My phone plan was still on the family bundle. Dad could track my location. Another tie I had forgotten to cut. I opened the door, leaving the safety chain on. "What do you want?" Kevin wasn't drunk this time. He looked hungover and smug. He shoved a folded piece of paper through the crack of the door. "You've been served," he said. I took the paper. It was a temporary restraining order. It claimed that I, Juliana Lawson, had threatened physical violence against Kevin Lawson and was stalking him. I scanned the document. It looked official. It had a seal. It had a judge's signature. "Stay away from the house," Kevin said. "Stay away from Mom and Dad. If you show up tomorrow at the closing, you'll be arrested. 500 feet, sis. Learn to measure it." He turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Dad says thanks for the tuition. He thinks I should go to business school with the house money, maybe start a crypto hedge fund." He laughed and walked away. I closed the door and unfolded the paper fully. I've been in the military for over a decade. I've read thousands of official documents. I know what government paperwork looks like. The font, the spacing, the specific phrasing. This document was a mess. The seal of the court was pixelated, a low-res JPEG copy-pasted from Google Images. The judge's name was Judge Judy Scheinlin. I kid you not. He had literally used the name of the TV judge, probably thinking it sounded official, or maybe just mocking me. The case number format was wrong for our county. It was a fake, a customized template he probably downloaded from a prank website or a shady legal forum. I called the county clerk just to be sure. "No, ma'am," the clerk told me after checking the system. "There are no filings against you. No restraining orders, nothing." "Thank you," I said. "If someone gave you a forged court order," the clerk added, her voice serious, "that is a very serious crime, impersonating a court official." "Add it to the list," I muttered. I sat down on the bed. They were digging their hole deeper and deeper. They were so confident in my submission, so sure that I would just roll over and take it, that they were being reckless. Hubris, that was the word. Excessive pride leading to a downfall. I looked at the fake restraining order. Kevin thought this piece of paper was a shield. In reality, it was a confession. He was trying to intimidate a witness. I called Lieutenant Donahue. He was an old friend from high school who had joined the police force while I joined the Marines. "Donahue," I said, "I need a favor. Not a professional one yet. Just stand by." "Jules, I heard you were back." His voice was warm. "What's going on? I saw a yellow Lamborghini speeding through a school zone yesterday. Plates came back to..." "Your dad?" "It's Kevin driving it," I said. "And yeah, about that. I need you to be at 412 Oakwood Lane tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. I'm going to have a confrontation, and I think things might get volatile." "Domestic dispute?" he asked, his tone shifting to professional. Attempted grand larceny and federal fraud, I corrected, and maybe a little bit of resisting arrest. Okay, Donahue said. I'll be there. But, Jules, be careful. Family stuff gets messy. It's already messy, Mike. I'm just bringing them up. I spent the rest of the day prepping. I scanned the fake restraining order. I backed up the video files from Mr. Marcus. I printed the bank statements. I organized everything into binders. One for the police, one for the buyer, one for me. I felt like I was preparing for a mission briefing. Objective: reclaim the high ground. Enemy combatants, hostile and entrenched. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan. I thought about the house, the way the morning light hit the kitchen table, the rose bushes I planted out front. They weren't just taking a building. They were taking my safety, my stability. But tomorrow, I was going to take it back, and I was going to take their dignity with it. Friday, D-Day. The closing was scheduled for 5 p.m. at the house. Evelyn Thorne insisted on doing the final walkthrough and handing over the check on site, probably so she could change the locks immediately. I met Lawyer Vance at a coffee shop down the street at 4 p.m. He looked sharp in his suit, carrying a heavy leather briefcase. "You ready?" he asked. "Ready," I said. I was wearing my dress blues, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. It was a psychological tactic. It reminded them and me of who I was. I wasn't just Jules. I was Staff Sergeant Lawson. I represented order, discipline, and the United States government. We drove to the house. The scene was chaotic. The driveway was full. The yellow Lamborghini was there, of course, my parents' truck, Evelyn Thorne's sleek black Mercedes, and a moving van, Evelyn's crew, ready to clear out anything left behind. We parked on the street. I saw Mr. Marcus standing on his porch, watching. He gave me a subtle salute. I nodded back. As Vance and I walked up the driveway, the noise hit us. Kevin was blasting music from the car again. My dad was shouting instructions to someone on the phone. Mom was fluttering around Evelyn Thorne, trying to be the gracious hostess. "And here is the garden," Mom was saying. "Juliana put a lot of work into it, but you can pave it over if you want." "We plan to," Evelyn said coldly, checking her watch. "It's 4:45. Is the house empty?" "Completely," Dad boomed, coming down the steps. "Just the last few bags of trash." He pointed to a black garbage bag near the curb. I saw the corner of my favorite quilt sticking out, the quilt Grandma made me. I felt a surge of heat, but Vance put a hand on my arm. "Wait." We walked up the path. "Well, look who decided to show up," Kevin shouted from the driver's seat of the Lambo. "Didn't you read the paper, sis? 500 feet! I'm calling the cops." "Please do," I said calm, my voice projecting clearly. "Save me the trouble." Dad stormed over to us. "Juliana, what are you doing here? You are ruining this." "Miss Thorne, I apologize. My daughter is unstable." Evelyn Thorne looked at me, then at my uniform. She sneered. "I don't care about your family drama, Mr. Lawson. I care about my contract. Is she going to be a problem?" "She's leaving right now," Dad hissed, grabbing my arm. I shook him off, sharp, hard. "Do not touch me." Dad recoiled, shocked by the physical rejection. "I'm not leaving," I said, "and neither are you. Not until we clear up a few misunderstandings." "There is no misunderstanding," Dad yelled. "I have power of attorney. I sold the house." "It's done." "Mr. Lawson," Lawyer Vance stepped forward, his voice baritone and smooth. "I am Jeffrey Vance, representing your daughter, and I advise you to lower your voice." "I don't care who you are," Dad spat. "Get off my property." "That's the issue, Robert," I said, stepping into the center of the circle. "It's not your property. It never was." "The power of attorney," Dad started, "allows you to act for Juliana Lawson," Vance interrupted, but Juliana Lawson doesn't own 412 Oakwood Lane. Silence descended. The music from the car seemed suddenly very loud. Kevin turned it off, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Evelyn Thorne stepped forward, her eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" "I said," Vance opened his briefcase, "that the title to this property is held by the J.L. Asset Protection Trust. Miss Lawson is the beneficiary, but I am the trustee, and I never signed a purchase agreement. I never authorized a sale, and I certainly never received a deposit." I watched Dad's face. It went from red to a pasty, sickly white. That's a lie," Dad stammered. "I checked the records online." "The online records are outdated," I said. "You were too lazy to go to the courthouse. You were too greedy to ask questions." "So," Evelyn Thorne turned slowly to my father. She looked like a dragon waking up. "Mr. Lawson, are you telling me that you signed a contract to sell me a house you don't have the right to sell?" I... Dad looked at Mom. Mom was trembling, clutching her pearls. "And," I added, pulling out the fake restraining order, "Kevin here tried to intimidate a witness with a forged court document. And," Vance pulled out the addendum, "Martha here forged Juliana's signature on a notarized document." "It's a lie!" Kevin screamed, jumping out of the car. "She's lying! She's just jealous of my car!" At that moment, a siren wailed. Blue and red lights flashed against the yellow paint of the Lamborghini. Lieutenant Donahue's cruiser pulled up to the curb, followed by 2 other squad cars. The trap had snapped shut. "You called the cops?" Kevin laughed nervously. "Good, arrest her for trespassing." I looked at my brother. I looked at the parents who had thrown me away for a quick payday. "Oh, Kevin," I said, a small, sad smile playing on my lips. "They aren't here for me." Lieutenant Donahue didn't walk up the driveway like a friend. He walked up like a police officer responding to a felony in progress. His hand rested near his belt, his face a mask of professional detachment. Behind him, 2 other officers fanned out, flanking the beautiful yellow Lamborghini that was the center of all this misery. "Officer!" Dad shouted, stepping forward, regaining some of his bluster. "Thank God you're here. These people are trespassing. I want my daughter and this crooked lawyer removed from my property immediately." Donahue stopped 3 feet from my father. He looked at Dad, then he looked at me. He gave me a barely perceptible nod before turning his attention back to Robert Lawson. "Mr. Lawson," Donahue said, his voice calm but authoritative, "we're not here for your daughter. We're here because we received a complaint regarding significant financial fraud and the sale of a property under false pretenses." "Fraud?" Dad laughed, but it sounded like a bark of panic. "That's ridiculous. I have power of attorney. Show him the paper, Kevin." Kevin scrambled to the passenger seat of the car to grab the folder, but Lawyer Vance stepped in. "Lieutenant," Vance said, handing a thick document to the officer, "this is the deed of trust for the property at 412 Oakwood Lane. As you can see, the property was transferred to the J.L. Asset Protection Trust 3 years ago. I am the trustee. Mr. Lawson here has attempted to sell an asset he does not own, using a power of attorney that is invalid for this specific entity." Donahue scanned the document. He looked at Evelyn Thorne. "Ma'am," Donahue asked, "did you enter into a contract with Robert Lawson to purchase this home?" Evelyn Thorne was no longer the smug shark she had been in her office. She was a businesswoman realizing her investment was on fire. Her face went deadly pale. "I did," she said, her voice ice cold. "I wired a total of $400,000 to him, $50,000 as a deposit, and $350,000 yesterday to expedite the closing." "To an escrow account?" Vance asked gently. Evelyn's eyes darted to my father. "No, to his personal account." He claimed it was necessary to clear liens on the title immediately to meet the Friday deadline. The air left the driveway. It was like a vacuum had sucked up all the oxygen. I watched the realization hit my father. It wasn't a slow dawn. It was a lightning strike. He had sold a house he didn't own. He had taken $400,000 of cash, and he had spent it. "You wired the money directly to him?" Vance repeated, making sure the police heard. "Without a title clearance?" "He showed me the title," Evelyn shrieked, pointing a manicured finger at Dad. "He showed me a deed with Juliana's name on it." "An old deed," I said, speaking for the first time, "from before the trust was formed." Evelyn spun on my father. She looked like she was about to rip his throat out with her teeth. "Robert, where is my money? If the sale is void, I want my $400,000 back. Right now. Transfer it back." Dad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He looked at the Lamborghini. He looked at Kevin. Dad stammered. Sweat was pouring down his face now, ruining his barbecue-ready appearance. It's invested." "Invested?" Evelyn screamed. "In what?" I stepped forward and pointed at the yellow car. "In that, Miss Thorne, and in a trip to the Maldives, and in the Golden Leaf Casino." "Dad," Kevin's voice was small, trembling. "Dad, tell them it's okay." "Mr. Lawson," Donahue said, stepping closer, his hand moving to his handcuffs. "Did you spend the funds provided by Miss Lawson, Thorne, for the purchase of this property?" "It was a loan," Dad yelled, desperate now. "It was an advance. I was going to pay it back once what?" I asked. "Once you sold the rest of my life?" "This is theft," Evelyn hissed. "This is grand larceny. Officer, I want to press charges. I want to press every single charge available in the state of Ohio." "Wait," Mom cried out, rushing from the porch. "Please, we can fix this. We can sell the truck. We can return the car." I looked at Mom. "You can't return the car, Mom. You bought it. As soon as you drove it off the lot, it lost 20% of its value. You're underwater." "Juliana, stop this," Mom begged, grabbing my arm. "He's your father. He's your brother. Don't let them take him." I looked at her hand on my uniform. Then I looked her in the eye. "I'm not doing this, Mom," I said softly. "You did this. You did this when you forged my signature." "Oh, Lieutenant, did I mention the forgery?" Vance handed over the second document. "The addendum, Lieutenant, notarized. But Juliana was in Okinawa on that date. We have her flight records." Mom gasped and covered her mouth. She backed away, hitting the railing of the porch. The house of cards wasn't just falling, it was incinerating. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of Kevin's phone ringing. He ignored it. He was staring at the police officers, his face a mixture of disbelief and terror. The arrogance was gone. The golden child was just a 40-year-old man in a leather jacket he couldn't afford, standing next to a car that was about to become evidence. "Robert Lawson," Lieutenant Donahue said, his voice projecting clearly across the yard so the neighbors, including Mr. Marcus, could hear. "You are under arrest for grand larceny, fraud, and theft by deception." "No!" Dad shouted. He tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. "You can't do this. I'm a respected member of this community. My daughter, she's confusing you. It's a civil matter." "Taking $400,000 for a property you don't own isn't a civil matter, sir," Donahue said. "It's a felony." He spun Dad around. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of my childhood ending. It was the sound of the fear I had lived with for years, the fear of his anger, his judgment, being locked away. "Kevin!" Dad yelled as he was being marched to the squad car. "Call the lawyer! Call Henderson!" Kevin didn't move. He was shaking. He looked at me, his eyes wide and wet. "Jules," he whimpered. "Jules, tell them. Tell them I didn't know. I just wanted the car. Dad said it was okay." "You didn't know?" I asked, stepping closer to him. "You mocked me, Kevin. You told me I was homeless. You told me to try to keep up. You broke Grandma's vase." "I was drunk," he pleaded. "I didn't mean it. I'm your brother." "Miss Thorne," I said, turning to the furious real estate mogul, "I believe the money for that vehicle came from your funds. Technically, that car belongs to you, or at least the debt does." Evelyn Thorne looked at the Lamborghini with pure hatred. "Officer, that vehicle was purchased with stolen funds. I want it seized." "No!" Kevin screamed. He threw himself onto the hood of the car, hugging the yellow metal like it was a life raft. "You can't take it. It's mine. My name is on the title." "Actually," Vance interjected smoothly, "if the funds were obtained through fraud, the title is voidable. And since you are a beneficiary of the fraud, Kevin..." Donahue signaled to the other two officers. They moved toward Kevin. "Kevin Lawson," one of the officers said, "please step away from the vehicle." "No, it's my car. I'm going to be somebody." Kevin wailed. He was crying now, big, ugly, heaving sobs. It was pathetic. This was the man who had terrorized me, who had taken every opportunity and squandered it, now clinging to a piece of metal because it was the only thing that gave him value. "Step away, sir, or we will assist you," the officer warned. Kevin let go, sliding down the front of the car to the driveway. He curled into a ball. "Kevin Lawson," the officer continued, pulling Kevin's hands behind his back, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and receipt of stolen property." "Mom!" Kevin screamed. "Mommy, help me!" Mom was sobbing on the porch steps, her face buried in her hands. She couldn't help him. She couldn't even help herself. I watched them cuff Kevin. I watched them march him past me. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face, snot running from his nose. "You did this," he hissed at me. "You ruined everything." "I didn't sell the house, Kevin," I said calmly, "and I didn't buy the car. You did this to yourself." They put him in the second squad car. Evelyn Thorne walked up to me. She looked exhausted. The fire was gone, replaced by the grim reality of a long legal battle to get her money back. "Ms. Lawson," she said stiffly, "it seems I owe you an apology. You were right." "I don't want an apology, Miss Thorne," I said. "I just want you and your crew off my property, and take your lockbox off my door." "Of course," she said. She signaled to her moving crew. "Pack it up, we're leaving." I stood there in the driveway, in my dress blues, watching the flashing lights. My father was in one car, my brother was in the other. My mother was a wreck on the porch. It was a tragedy, a complete and total tragedy. But as I looked at Mr. Marcus across the street, who gave me a slow, respectful nod, I realized something. It wasn't my tragedy, not anymore. The tow truck arrived 20 minutes later. Watching a Lamborghini being winched onto a flatbed is usually a sad sight for car enthusiasts. For me, it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. It was the physical removal of the cancer that had infected my family. Mom finally stopped crying long enough to look at me. She looked old. The energy she had used to manipulate and control for all those years had evaporated. "Are you happy?" she whispered. "Your father is going to jail. Your brother is going to jail. I might go to jail." "For the forgery?" I asked. "Yes, Mom, you might. Lawyer Vance handed the file to the district attorney. It's out of my hands." "How could you?" she asked, her voice trembling with that familiar mix of victimhood and accusation. "We are your family." "No," I said, shaking my head. "Family protects you. Family builds you up. You guys, you were parasites. You saw me as a host. You thought because I was strong, I wouldn't mind carrying the weight. You thought because I was dutiful, I wouldn't bite back. I walked up the steps, past her. I put the key, my key, into the lock. "Where will I go?" she asked. "Evelyn said she's going to sue us for the money. We'll lose our house. We'll lose everything." "You have a truck," I said without turning around, "and I hear the motels on Route 9 have vacancies. But you can't stay here, Mom. This is trust property, and you are not a beneficiary." I opened the door and stepped into my house. It was empty. They had thrown everything away. The walls were bare, the floors were dusty, the smell of my dad's cologne still lingered in the air, a ghost of his intrusion. I walked to the kitchen. My table was gone. I walked to the living room. My sofa was gone. But the walls were still there, the roof was still there, and most importantly, the silence was there. It wasn't the lonely silence I used to feel when I came home on leave, wishing for their approval. It was the silence of peace. It was the silence of safety. I sat down on the floor in the middle of the living room. I took off my uniform cover and set it beside me. My phone buzzed. It was Sarah from the bank. Text: "I heard the news. The whole town is talking. Are you okay?" I typed back. Text: "I'm better than okay. I'm free." I spent that first night sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I didn't care. I slept for 12 hours straight. No nightmares, no anxiety, just deep, restorative sleep. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Evelyn Thorne was as ruthless as she promised. She sued my parents for every penny. They had to sell their house, the one I had paid to put a new roof on, to pay her back a portion of the stolen funds. The rest they will be paying off for the rest of their lives. Dad took a plea deal, 2 years in minimum security for fraud. He blamed his lawyer, he blamed the judge, he blamed me. He never once said, "I'm sorry." Kevin didn't get off so easy. Because he had previous charges and because he resisted arrest, he got 3 years. The golden child was finally going to have to learn how to iron his own shirts, state-issued ones. Mom pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of fraud to avoid prison time, thanks to her age. She got 5 years of probation and community service. She lives in a small apartment on the other side of town now. She calls me sometimes. I never answer. The smoke from the barbecue smelled different this time. It didn't smell like entitlement. It smelled like hickory and celebration. I flipped the burgers on the new grill. It was a modest one, not that $1,000 monstrosity Dad had bought with my money. "Hey, Jules, need another beer?" I looked up. Sarah was walking out of the back door carrying a cooler. Behind her was Mr. Marcus, looking spry for 73, holding a bowl of his famous potato salad. "I'm good," I smiled. "How's the game?" "Browns are losing," Marcus grumbled. "As usual." "Some things never change," I laughed. I looked around the yard. It was different now. I had replanted the garden. The Lamborghini tracks on the grass had finally grown over. The house was furnished again, not with expensive stuff, but with things I liked. Things I had chosen. I had quit the military. After everything that happened, I realized I had spent my whole life serving others, my country, my family, and neglecting myself. I took a job as a logistics consultant for a tech firm in the city. Good pay, no deployments, and I slept in my own bed every night. A car pulled up in the driveway. It wasn't a supercar. It was a sensible SUV. Lawyer Vance stepped out, waving a folder. "Just in time for burgers, Jeffrey," I called out. "And just in time for this," Vance said, handing me the folder. The final judgment from the civil suit against Kevin for the destruction of property. I opened it. The court had ordered Kevin to pay me $500 for Grandma's vase. He didn't have the money, of course, so it would be garnished from his prison commissary fund. It would take him about 10 years to pay it off at 50 cents an hour. It's not about the money, Vance said, accepting a burger. No, I said, closing the folder. It's about the receipt. I looked at my friends, my real family, the people who had stood by me when I had nothing but a duffel bag and a rental car. I thought about the girl who drove home 6 months ago, terrified of her father, desperate for her mother's love, willing to be the doormat just to keep the peace. That girl didn't live here anymore. I raised my beer bottle. To the trust, I said. To the trust, Sarah and Marcus echoed. And to you, listening to this, maybe you're the provider in your family. Maybe you're the one everyone leans on until you feel like you're going to break. Maybe you think you have to take it because they're family. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, especially if they're the ones holding the match. If you have receipts, keep them. If you have a voice, use it. And if anyone ever tells you that you're homeless in your own life, remind them who owns the land. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel. Stay strong, stay safe, and keep your receipts.